We watch every year as Japan's aces step onto the global stage, expecting thunderous contracts, $200 million deals, 7 years guaranteed. But what happens when the most electrifying arm of his generation, armed with a 100-mile-per-hour fastball and represented by the most formidable agent in baseball history, flies across the Pacific only to be greeted not by a bidding war, but by an unnerving, deafening silence? Is the market misjudging Imai Tatsuya? Or is the negotiation game fundamentally different from what we, the fans, are led to believe? Welcome back, baseball fanatics, to 601 Daily News, the place where we cut through the rumors and delve into the stressful, high-stakes countdown clock of NPB stars transitioning to the majors. Today, we're dissecting the raw footage of Imai's arrival in the States, revealing the brutal truth behind the glossy headlines that suggest deals are already done.
We saw Imai, cool and collected, land in the U.S., meeting his destiny, or rather, meeting Scott Boras for a critical 3-hour summit. Imai himself relayed the initial Boras message: "We might be narrowed down to 3 or 4 clubs," suggesting the field had been culled. On the surface, this sounds like progress, like the process is moving into the final stages, but anyone who watches the posting system knows that this narrowing down phase is often the most dangerous.
This is where the expectations, hyped by the media, collide with the financial reality of Major League Baseball. Media chatter had Imai pegged as a lock for 7 years, potentially exceeding $140 million. Why? Because the data screams ace potential. Imai posted a career-best strikeout rate last season, hovering around 10.5 K9, and his sustained fastball velocity of 97 miles per hour is elite, particularly for a Japanese starter. We are talking about a top-tier arm, a pitcher who dominated the Seibu Lions rotation and delivered when it mattered most. That's why the reality check, revealed after the Boras meeting, hit like a breaking ball in the dirt. Concrete offers are apparently not yet forthcoming. Interest and formal offers are separate issues. This is the central conflict, the high drama of the posting deadline with mere days remaining. The tension isn't just about the money, it's about the reputation of the player and the strategy of the agent. Many critics immediately turn to Boras, labeling him the vampire Boras, speculating that his involvement is actually scaring off potential suitors. They argue that teams fear the high commission structure and the absolute refusal to budge on term and dollar. They anticipate that Boras will demand a premium, perhaps insisting on a 7-year deal when teams are only willing to commit 4 due to Imai's past minor injury history. And to them, I say, you are missing the fundamental math of mega-agency representation. Many will argue that Imai should have chosen an agent who focuses on speed and fit, saying a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. He should take a shorter deal and prove himself. But that stance overlooks the potential financial ceiling Boras creates. While Boras negotiations drag, they also ensure the absolute maximum market value is tested. If Imai secures a 4-year, $80 million contract with a smaller agency, that's 4 years lost on the open market, compared to potentially landing a 5-year, $110 million deal via Boras, giving him an extra $30 million and better long-term security. The silence is not a sign of failure. It is Boras's signature tactic, forcing the big money clubs, the Dodgers, the Yankees, perhaps even the Phillies, to raise the stakes against themselves as the clock ticks down. The true emotional weight, however, falls squarely on Imai himself. We saw glimpses of his vulnerability in the transcript, the almost nervous excitement, saying, "I'm just starting to feel real excitement." This man is carrying the weight of his entire career, his family's future, and the hopes of the Seibu Lions into a tiny hotel room meeting with a legendary negotiator. The pressure escalates to a climax when we hear the mention of East Coast teams being interested. This is the plot twist. Everyone assumed the West Coast Giants, the historical landing spots for NPB pitching talent, would be the primary suitors. But if the East Coast is stepping up, perhaps the Mets, who are desperate for rotation stability, or a surprise dark horse like the Blue Jays or Red Sox, it indicates that Imai's value is predicated more on desperate need than pure superstar cachet.
Kenji Sato, a fictional former NPB front office analyst whose insights are usually razor-sharp, noted, "The real decision isn't between $100 million and $120 million. It's between the certainty of a 4-year term on a contender and gambling for the 5 or 7-year term that Boras promises. Imai has to decide if he prioritizes security or the maximum payout. The fact that the deadline is 6 days away and interest hasn't converted to formal contract drafts means Boras is playing chicken right up to the final second, relying on the fact that several teams desperately need a mid-rotation ace with Imai's proven durability. The pace quickens now." The uncertainty is overwhelming, but what truly struck a chord was the commentary from fans who noted Imai's composure. He's handling this with dignity, focused on the best choice for himself and his family. The lesson here, which ties back to the initial mystery, is that the silence we interpreted as a lack of demand was actually a function of high-level strategic financial warfare. Imai is a top asset, but his agent chose the highest stakes path, meaning the final answer will only come when the money men cave under pressure. He took the plunge, embracing the chaos and the uncertainty inherent in chasing the American dream. His final decision, whatever the dollar amount or the uniform, will be defined by his courage in standing firm against the immense pressure cooker of the MLB negotiation system. It's a harsh world, but Imai Tatsuya, the man who earned his spot, deserves a contract that reflects his true potential, regardless of whether it's a monster 7-year deal or a strategic 4-year bridge. We need to see that final decision, not just for the money, but for the closure. What team will crack first under the Boras pressure? Will Imai finally land on the East Coast and face that brutal time difference he joked about? Or will the financial heavyweights in the West swoop in at the 11th hour? Let us know in the comments below which team you think Imai will sign with and why. Is it the Yankees, desperate for pitching depth, or an unforeseen East Coast wildcard? If you've enjoyed this deep dive into the true tension behind the posting window, make sure you like this video, share it with your fellow baseball obsessives, and absolutely subscribe to 601 Daily News for all the breaking developments as the clock runs out on Imai Tatsuya's MLB dream.